My name is Tim Sarantonio. I'm Director of Strategic Partnerships over here at Neon One. Neon One is a technology ecosystem that serves over 30,000 nonprofits with a variety of services. Today we're going to be doing a wonderful overview with our friends over at Firefly Partners who are actually certified Rallybound experts. And so we're going to be unpacking a lot of really cool things when it comes to peer-to-peer. We're going to be looking at some concrete examples and actionable items. We always want to have things that are not only educational, but like, hey, how do I actually do this? That's really important to us as we build out our ecosystem of partners to really kind of help guide organizations like yours to rock things, right? And we're heading into a really, really exciting and important time of the year where this is going to be very valuable information. So we're really, really excited to have Eleanor Hyde from Firefly Partners join us today. It's actually a treat because Eleanor came to the Neon One office and is in a room right next to me. So, but then we also have Morgan Connolly from Rallybound joining us from the West Coast as well. So we're going to really, really unpack a lot of great things today. So just a few housekeeping items. This is being recorded, and we will be putting this up on the Neon One Partners channel on our YouTube. So if you have to leave early or if you're watching the recording, well, thank you. So we'll definitely be following up with an email with how to access that and also some other good solid information as well to kind of help you folks. So with that said, Eleanor, I'm going to hand the reins over to you and take it away.
Yeah, sure thing. So thank you everybody for being here. I'm really excited to share some thoughts about how to put your peers back in peer-to-peer fundraising, how to really focus on your people. So we're going to be kind of moving this conversation back and forth between me and my co-presenter Morgan, as part of the Rallybound team. And I'll be talking about strategy, and then Morgan will talk about kind of how to apply some of that strategy in the Rallybound tool set. So should we jump right in? Getting started with things, I want you to imagine for a moment that you are at the part of your year where you're getting ready to start putting together the structure for your peer-to-peer event for next year. Take a moment and put yourself in that headspace. And as you get started on your event, you always want to start by thinking about what worked last year, what didn't work last year. If you didn't do a debrief of kind of those things when the event ended, do it now, think about it, and gather any feedback that you may have gotten from your people, your participants, people who donated, people who ran in your race or participated in your DIY, whatever that might look like. And as you're gathering all that stuff, on the next slide here, really what we're doing today is we're going to talk all about how to keep your event really people-focused. So thinking about in all of the different parts of your event and how it's structured, putting yourself into your participants' shoes and thinking about what they need by making any action they need to take clear and easy and straightforward, and then enabling people with the tools that they need for success. So how do you, for your participants in your event, put things right in front of them so that they know how to succeed? I'm going to do that by talking mostly about kind of three buckets of stuff today. We're going to talk about effective forms, and we'll go through a bunch of stuff about that. I'm going to talk about communications in a variety of different ways, and then we're going to talk about engagement tools and how to keep people engaged and excited about your event. So that's my big overarching agenda: forms, communications, and engagement, and we'll touch all of those. So let's start by talking about forms. A person wants to join your event. They want to fundraise for you. They're excited enough that they're ready to do that. The first thing they're going to hit is their sign-up form, the form to sign up and become a fundraiser for your event, whether that be DIY or a run, walk, in-person event. So how do you make good forms so that people can get involved quickly and easily? We've got a couple of kind of key recommendations around really good forms. The first one is always to limit the number of questions you're asking. Often with in-person events, you have a lot of things you want to ask. There may be a waiver form. You might want to know what size t-shirt they wear, right? Like there's a lot of information you want to gather, but you want to go through all of the questions you have in your form, all of the things you're asking, and think, do we really need this information? and how are we going to use it? Be really strategic about making sure that every time you ask somebody to like fill out another field or check another, read another thing, that you are doing that with purpose and that you really need that information. We always want to make sure that you have a clear impact statement. Even in your forms, you want to talk about what you are doing has impact, and here is what that impact is. By participating in this event, you make this impact. People are coming to participate in your event or raise money for you because they care. So you want to make sure that sense of why they care and what they're accomplishing stays present and active. My next point is going to be transparent, which I'll talk about a little bit more on the next slide. But in a process where you're signing up for an event, you want to try and be as transparent as possible with people about how long it's going to take and how much they're going to need to do to get engaged. You don't want people to go like, oh yeah, I'm going to sign up for this right now, and then find, oh my gosh, actually there's like 17 steps and I'm going to be here for a while. You want to try and be as transparent and clear as possible about what they've got ahead of them. You want your forms to be mobile responsive. I think this is sort of a no-brainer for a lot of people, but it's worth mentioning. You want to make sure anything you're putting out in the world, if people want to do it on their phone while they're, waiting for their kid's soccer game to end or on the train or what have you, that is a thing they can do easily and is going to work well for them. And then my last piece of advice is you want to make sure you test your forms. I think this is a really common road bump for folks. I have often sat in the seat of being the one making the event happen, and it can be very easy to get very tunnel vision about the things that I need to do to get my event up and out into the world. Once you've got your forms built, I so deeply recommend taking time to go through the process of registering and test it. Make sure that every step makes sense, and acknowledge when you might be a little too deep in it to see things fresh. So maybe you go find someone else in your office to test the forms and you like watch over their shoulder, see where they run into problems. Maybe you find, a family member or a friend and say like, you are not deep in my organizational mission and conversation all the time. Will you walk through this and tell me where you have problems? Actually run a credit card and make sure it works before you push it out to the public, things like that, so that you can be really confident that the people who show up on day one and are the most excited to get signed up don't run into big problems right off the bat. When it comes to forms, then, we also want to talk about the difference between setting up your forms to be one step, all the information getting collected on one page, versus multi-step, where you break it up onto multiple pages and you say next, and then you collect more information and it goes on. This is a conversation that I think comes up in organizations as you try to figure out like what's the best way to get the information that we want, but also maintain that transparency about how much information we're going to collect and how long the process is going to take. So this is sort of my like pros cons list on one step versus multi-step. On the one side, on multi-step, things are going to be super clear. This is all the things we're collecting and then you're done. As a con, you want to ask, is that too overwhelming? If you're collecting a ton of information from people, it can feel like a lot to see it all in one place and have all like be scrolling. It can present some risks around mobile usage because you have so much information on one page. Rearranging it for mobile responsiveness sometimes doesn't work as well, so that can be a downside too. On the other hand, on the multi-step side, I'm going to admit I did this sort of pros cons. I personally prefer multi-step. I think there's a lot of strength to it. It allows you to break up a complex process into bite-sized pieces so people don't get as overwhelmed as easily. And it also makes an enormous difference in the amount of information you collect in your analytics around measuring success or abandonment rates and understanding what that looks like. We do a lot of work at Firefly using Google Optimize and Google Analytics to test what works best on forms and what works best for a particular organization and their event. Multi-step forms makes it a lot easier to say, we want to test on this page if we structure a thing like this, does it work better versus if we structure it like this? I I will throw out there, a lot of that is still possible on one-step forms. It's just a little more complicated. Google has a tool called scroll decks monitoring that allows you to do some of that abandonment rate tracking. It's just a little more complicated to set up. The one big piece of advice I'll give around multi-step is you do want to be really sure that you hold on to that tip about transparency when you're putting together your multi-step form, and still communicate clearly about how much information you're going to track, how long this might take. A lot of times organizations will have like a progress bar in your as you're moving through the process to allow people to see kind of how far along they are. So those are our forms. I'm going to jump now into my communication piece, and then once I chat a little bit about communication tools, I'm going to hand off to Morgan to talk about how that stuff gets implemented in Rallybound. But kind of 3 key things I want to talk about when it comes to communication, right? Because we want to remember you're talking to real people on the other side of this, and they're going to, they want to take things personally, and they want to be motivated by the mission that they've signed up to support in your event. On the other hand, you, I imagine, are not a team with a limitless amount of time and energy to manage your event. So how do you make your life as easy as possible while still keeping people really engaged and keeping things personalized? So 3 key ideas here I'm going to talk about. The first one is automation makes your life so much easier, so use it. There are so many tools to automate your communications. Use them. The second one is segmentation and conditional content to make things personalized and to respond to people's activities that they're doing. And then the last idea I'm going to chat about a little bit is tracking impact so that you can keep improving and making things better. Okay, so automation makes your life easier. Let's look at the next slide, which is about a welcome series. There's a lot of really strong tools in Rallybound that are going to allow you to automate how communication goes to people. And so the example I pulled here on this slide is one about a welcome series for a donor to someone's personal page. All right, so for this example, I'm going to say, Tim is running in the race and Morgan comes and donates to Tim's page and is brand new to your organization. So how do you take Morgan and pull her closer into your organization? Well, we can use a welcome series that is automated to try and do that. And these bullet points here speak to kind of, at Firefly, our recommended flow for a welcome series with someone who's not super familiar with your organization yet. You're going to want to start, we usually do a 5-step welcome series. This starts with a thank you for joining and giving, moves then to an introduction to your organization or the event that people gave to, so you can give them some more context. The third one being an easy call to action. Often it's a social share to promote the event or your organization. Say, share with the rest of your community the support that you gave. The fourth one is usually going deeper around personal stories or the impact that your organization has. So again, educating these people. And the fifth email in the series is usually a deeper ask, often inviting that person to become a fundraiser on their own terms. So trying to get them engaged. So this is an example. I think there's a lot of places in an event like this where you can automate certain emails that trigger in order to reach people at certain stages in their fundraising or donors in their giving process and keep them engaged. This is an example that I particularly like to share because I think it's often the donors are often the most likely to kind of get lost in the shuffle of an event. So then as we go from automated messaging into segmented and coaching messages, this gets us back to paying attention to the person who's participating in your event, right? So people's participation in your event is not going to be one size fits all. It never is. People come to an event for a lot of different reasons and they participate in a lot of different ways. So your communication shouldn't be one size fits all either. And you want to try and meet people where they are as much as possible. So when you look at these kinds of coaching messages, it's really great to base them off of actions your participants have already taken, or sometimes actions that they haven't taken yet. So I often recommend that folks look at your event, look at the things that you think make fundraisers successful, and then build coaching messages around that. So for example, we have an organization we've worked with at Firefly who did some, numbers crunching, and they felt like their numbers showed very strongly that participants who donate to their own campaign, who kick off their fundraising efforts by donating themselves, have any much more successful fundraising efforts. So they started building that in as one of their actions that they ask everybody to take. And when they would have coaching messages built that if you have folks who haven't given themselves yet to their own page, encouraging people to do that. So a certain amount of time has gone by and people haven't made a personal gift yet, then reminding them and asking them to do that. You can also set up coaching messages around things like, have you personalized your page, or have they hit certain milestones yet, which allows you to really help keep people moving in the process of fundraising. It's also super helpful, I think, in looking at coaching messages and how you're collecting data to think about how you can collect information about why people participate. We work with a lot of organizations in the healthcare space, and being able to collect, are you participating in this event because you are a survivor, or because your family member was affected by our organization, or because a friend was, and being able to grab some of that information and use it to personalize how you speak to people about their engagement, that can be really powerful too. All right, I'm going to hand the virtual baton over to Morgan to talk a little bit about the specifics of how some of this stuff can happen in Rallybound.
Thanks, Eleanor. Excited to be with you all here today. And just to give you kind of a bit of a brief background on Rallybound, we started in 2012, and ultimately we're an online fundraising solution for mission-driven organizations. We specialize in peer-to-peer fundraising. However, we offer standalone donation and ticketed options. Some common event types we support include your typical walk, run, or bike ride, endurance campaigns, DIY or do-it-yourself fundraising, and memorial or tribute campaigns. So here what I'm going to show you is our pre-built autoresponders available to your organization to help manage your email strategy. These autoresponders are essentially emails that are generated and sent based on specific criteria. For example, what you'll see here highlighted is online donation confirmation. This is an email that each donor will receive after they've completed their donation and can also be used for their tax-deductible receipts. Out of the box, these autoresponders are readily available, but you can certainly customize these emails to your organization and utilize our placeholder system. Our placeholder system allows you to compose highly personalized emails and social shares to contacts. When you insert one of these placeholders, Rallybound's template system automatically generates emails and social shares with information appropriate for each specific recipient. You can go to the next slide, please. So Rallybound also provides the option for your organization to create custom emails for automation, or essentially automation triggers. So you can think of this as a drip campaign or inbound marketing strategy for fundraising. For example, what you're able to do is actually send the individual a personalized email, take say 3 days after they've registered. You can also set up these triggers to send emails based on specific fundraising activity. For example, congratulating individuals when they've raised X amount of money, or even when they've raised a % of their goal. This has a big impact when you're looking to engage your fundraisers, but in a more automated fashion. While we want to make sure your organization has the tools to communicate with your constituents, we also want to make sure we're providing your fundraisers the tools to maximize their fundraising efforts on behalf of your organization. Here you'll see an example of a fundraiser's dashboard. As soon as they've completed the registration process within Rallybound, they are automatically brought to this dashboard to start personalizing and promoting their page. One unique tool you can provide your fundraisers is our Getting Started checklist, which you'll see highlighted in red on the right-hand side. This checklist provides all of the steps your fundraisers need to complete in order to become a successful fundraiser. Out of the box, we have several of these items ready to go, but you can certainly personalize these to your specific event. We've found that this checklist, along with our registration process, increases conversion of registrants to fundraisers by upwards of 50% compared to the industry average of less than 20%. At Rallybound, we ultimately believe it's extremely important for your fundraisers to have the tools to personalize and promote their fundraising page. We've found that people that personalize their pages raise 3 times more than people who don't because they've invested that heart equity. In order for your fundraisers to effectively promote themselves, we've actually built an embedded email engine ready for their immediate use. You can see that at the next slide. Once they've verified their email address, they can start uploading contacts from various outlets, including Gmail, LinkedIn, and Apple Contacts. They can choose from an email template created by your organization using our placeholder system, or this person can create one of their own. Rallybound also has a 98% inbox placement score, so essentially emails sent will be emails delivered. The last option we provide your fundraisers is the ability to share socially through Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. They can also add their Facebook account to activate live Facebook commenting, as well as Facebook Live from their mobile phone. Eleanor, I'll go ahead and pass it on to you.
Yeah, back to me. So as we wrap up the part of this conversation that's about communications, I just wanted to talk a little bit about this idea of tracking your communications, testing, measuring, and then using that to repeat. So I really like to talk about your email communications, or really almost anything you do in the digital space, as an opportunity to run an experiment, right? So like, think about this, the basic scientific method you learned in elementary school of setting a hypothesis, running a test on that hypothesis, and then measuring your results to see what worked. So a lot of people, I think, play with A/B subject line testing in their emails. There's a lot of ways you can go beyond that to test other things in your communications. You can do layout, tone of an email, how you use buttons and links, how you're using images. But the other thing I'll caution is know that you really only want to be testing one element at a time. This does take longer, but it gets you better information. We often, when we look at events, peer-to-peer events, we will recommend that you run a test on your event for an entire year, or like the entire run of the event, to give you a lot of information about what's working better. So back to my point earlier at the very beginning about, as you're getting started, thinking about what worked last year and what didn't, you're also going to want to think about, what do we want to try out this year to see if it works? And there's ways to set up your A/B tests so that you're not taking on too much risk around but you can try stuff out and say, if we talk about things this way, or if we use these different kinds of images, do we get better results? And then at the end of your event, be able to analyze that and iterate in your next year to continue getting better. There's so many powerful tools Morgan was talking about there, and knowing like which ones should we really be pushing on and where should we be putting our attention. A lot of how you can figure that out is by trying stuff and then measuring the results. All right, so moving on to kind of my third group of information here. We've talked about forums, we've talked about communications. I want to talk about how you keep people engaged with some of these other tools around your event. People want to be recognized. They want to feel like the work that they're doing has an impact and that they're being seen in the work that they're doing. So there's a lot of different ways to do this. There's a lot of little different tools in Rallybound that let you make the most of what your participants are doing as they fundraise for you. Some of this comes in the form of gamification, right? Saying like, if you can accomplish this much, you will be rewarded in this way. You want to use tools to convey impact. One of my favorite stories about this is we work with an organization that was able to do a really detailed breakdown of, it costs this much money to provide one person with one service. in their case, it was testing kits for bone marrow transplant matches. Okay, so you have these testing kits, and they figure out that costs about $10 to send one. They then went back to their events and used that as a way to convey impact. So for every $10 raised, you can say, you have impacted this many people. You have had this much impact. And they were able to use that as a way to tell a story about connecting the work that fundraisers are doing, participants are doing, directly with the mission of the organization. I'm a big fan of leaderboards because I'm a competitive person and I like to win things. So I think this can be a really powerful tool to motivate people, particularly when they're working on teams, to kind of compete against each other and make progress. We work with an organization that does a lot of DIY style fundraising with fraternities on college campuses. And that is an organization where we've seen the leaderboard thing make a huge impact, right? That there will be an organization in Chicago and a fraternity in Chicago and another one in like Santa Barbara, and they get into a war about which one of them can raise more money. Awesome. Everybody wins in that case. And then the last thing, I know Morgan's going to talk about some of this, is the social media acknowledgments. So we can encourage people to post in their own space and say, like, here's this thing I'm doing, and how do we, encourage participants to push it out. The other thing we can do is in the other direction as an organization, if you've collected people's social media information and you know that they are active in that space, then you can acknowledge them in the other direction. And I think people get really excited about this when they get shouted out on Twitter or on Facebook to say, like, yes, I am doing a thing and people are noticing. So that can also be really impactful. So get creative, and again, put yourself in your people's shoes. Think about, if you were fundraising, what would keep you excited? What would motivate you to push a little bit further and stay engaged and feel like the work that you're doing is powerful? Maureen, you have a couple examples of this, right, from clients?
Yes, definitely. So what you guys can see here is actually Chalk, who is one of our clients, Children's Hospital of Orange County, and this is their annual walk. This is an amazing event that they hold at Disneyland every year. We've had the pleasure of working with them to support the their online registration over the last few years, and we work closely with them. We work with Chalk to take feedback and lessons learned from their supporters to improve the overall digital experience year over year, since they've been working with us since 2016. So on Eleanor's topic with the leaderboard, so you can see their functionality here. Essentially, Rallybound has the capacity to organize your data in a way that different groups can compete against each other. So this is ultimately taking your traditional leaderboard, where it's just showing the top teams, to the next level, where you're able to show families against families competing with each other, organizations against organizations, and corporations competing against other corporations. This is also what their live site looks like. We have the fun confetti here that's being displayed. They just actually finished their event. Awesome. So you can see their leaderboard. They do provide some impact cards there as well, to showcase where each donation is going. And then here what you're seeing is that live leaderboard that I just explained. So Rallybound also offers the ability for organizations to award badges to your fundraisers who achieve specified criteria. So you'll notice here that one of our clients, Sierra Club, is using this functionality. These badges actually appear on the fundraiser's personal fundraising page and can even be displayed on the fundraiser's profile image. So we can work with you on creating new badges, or you can choose from a defaulted list that we've created. And so you'll notice that each achievement there, which is highlighted in this personal fundraising page, is associated with an amount. So the first one that's highlighted there, $7.03, is a dime per mile of the race.
So Morgan, I'm going to interrupt for a sec. That story I told about the impact and like this much money impacts this many people, the way that they implemented that was using batches, right? So it was like, once you've raised this much money, you've impacted 100 people or 200
Exactly.
people. Yeah.
So you can do it on an individual level. For instance, this is showing particularly the fundraiser and how it will affect them by giving a donation. And the next slide is actually showing how an organization can utilize this by using impact cards. So essentially, this allows your donors to conceptualize what their dollar can do. This is especially helpful in getting new donors to not only complete their first donation to your organization, but can also increase the total amount by illustrating how much impact their dollars can make. Although you're probably likely seeking unrestricted funds, this feature simply allows you to give potential supporters a better idea of where and how their dollars would translate to impact on your various programs.
Cool. All right. So I'm going to wrap things up with a little bit of conversation about how do you keep people engaged now that your event is over. I don't think this will come as a surprise to any event planners. Your event does not end when the event ends. You have so much more work left to do at that point. Take a break, take a long nap, but like come back to work and get, there's still more to be done. So we really want to recommend when you finish out an event, or this may be something that for DIY fundraisers you want to do on a rolling basis, but we highly recommend doing a post-event survey. You don't want to wait for people to come to you with issues they're having or challenges they had, or to tell you what worked and what didn't work. Ask people the things you want to know about. Be proactive about soliciting input about what in your event worked really well and what may have not been the best, so that you can take that information and use it next year to improve. The next thing is to stay connected. You want to continue to talk to people about the work that you're doing throughout the year if you have a really time-specific event, or keep people engaged if they're doing a DIY and then taking a step back, but maybe you hope that they're going to come back and do that same DIY event, for their next year's birthday or anniversary or what have you. One of the big pieces of advice we often share with people around this staying connected piece is to keep an eye, if you're doing an event, a physical event like a run or a walk, to keep an eye on the people who do that event and then don't come back the following year. There are lots of reasons why someone may find that they're not able to do a run or a bike ride again the following year. It might be timing. They sprained their ankle, they have, a new baby, and suddenly their childcare, situation is totally different. Like, there's lots and lots of reasons why a physical event that happens in the real space can be challenging for people. And we'll often recommend that for organizations that have a really strong event already, moving into that DIY space can be a way to retain people and transition them from, okay, maybe coming to a walk isn't the right thing for you this year, but would you like to fundraise for us in this other way that doesn't involve, physical activity? So that's a great way to kind of transition people and retain fundraisers who've been really engaged in the past, but maybe aren't able to participate in the same way as they were previously. And then lastly, I think I've said this a number of times, but you want to continue to convey impact. And this is a thing that I think is particularly easy as an event wraps up, or as a person's fundraising efforts are wrapping up in a DIY, to be able to mirror back at them, this is what you accomplished, this is what you did, and this is the impact it has on our organization, to continue to motivate people around what you do and why they chose to get involved. People fundraise for you because they care, and you want to continue to remind them that that passion has an impact and that that's what we value in them, not just their ability to bring dollars in the door. So think about those things. Think about how you are going to keep people engaged, and then use that engagement to continue improving and making your event or your DIY fundraiser more effective in the future. And I think, Tim, that brings us back over to brings us kind of the end of our agenda here for some Q&A. I think I'm going to hand the mic over to you if there are questions, you can feed them to Morgan and I.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to thank both of you for that awesome overview. I think there's a lot of great things that people can start to implement regardless of what platform you're using. I mean, that's always important, right? But we also want to be very practical in that you know, we're a technology company and provide solutions to people. So being able to turn around and say, great, best practices are awesome. How do you actually do it? So really appreciative of Firefly and Morgan from Rallybound joining us. So we're going to open it up for any questions for folks. There is a Q&A capability that you can actually submit. I'll be paying attention to that. You know, otherwise, yeah, checking for any questions. And that's fine. Maybe we answered everything. I mean, I think that was pretty comprehensive. And it should be in like the top bar for you to type it in. Oh, well, I think people are good today. That sounds good. We do have a little poll if you want to check out and get some follow-up information in terms of you know, hearing from the team of either Rallybound, Firefly, both. You know, Firefly does amazing work when it comes to building out a beautiful website for creating things that just really optimize that onboarding process. And also, we will be following up with this recording, and we also have some other great resources actually relating to some of the things that we just listened to, which would be a really good benchmarking report for fundraiser retention that we did after analyzing a few hundred Rallybound organizations. So awesome. We always love to get the opt-in, not bother people. Well, otherwise, folks, do you have any parting words for people who graciously attended today's webinar?
Thank you for coming. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Excited to be here with you all today. And if you do have any further questions, please do not hesitate to reach out.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. We'll definitely, you know, be able to follow up with these resources. And I again want to thank both of our presenters today. Everyone have a lovely rest of the day.